All right. If I'm not mistaken, you are now at characterization or characteristics of an inverse matrix and then the subspaces. So 3.2, I think, or 3.3. Yeah, 3.3 and 4.1. Those two. So let's just see what it's all about. That is where you are, right? Okay. So let's just get the idea behind the characterization or characteristics of linear of something that's um, invertible. So there's quite a lot of things that we can say, and you'll see the list. Maybe the lecturer uh, shared with you a list, but it's an extensive list, and obviously, if one is wrong, all of them are wrong. Just want to get the textbook here. But let's just first start with these 9, perhaps. So if a matrix is invertible, then A is the first one. A is invertible. A has n pivot points, so it must be an n by n matrix. So there will be n pivot points, meaning there is no free variable. And okay, then the null space, we will talk about that. Null space is null. Then number 4, the columns of A are linearly independent. It means there's no free variable. Number 5, the columns of A span Rn, because remember the columns is then we have A as m by n, and the number of values is then that n. And AB has a unique solution, which is the same basically as number 4. And then T, there's now a transformation. All of that last stuff is just transformations. Let me see. So I think in the textbook, there's actually a list of 15 stuff. There's 15 things. And all of it says the same thing. So you know if you need to calculate whether something is invertible or not, you can just maybe get the equation of find how many uh, pivot positions there are. I just want to find the list that's in your textbook as well. I think in the textbook it's, let me just make sure where it is. It is chapter 2.3 in your textbook, if you are following along in the textbook. Just want to find that list. Yeah, here it is. 149, or what's the, yeah, I have it, mine here is 121, but here is the list. So as you can see, a matrix n by n is invertible if all of these things are either true or false. And like I said, you can, if you like, you can you can test all of them, but the easiest is perhaps number C, A has n pivot positions. If you know that, then you know it's invertible matrix. And they can ask us, they can say, is the following an invertible matrix or not? And show that. So let's take this one here, for instance. They give us A. They say A is 1, 2, -1, 2, 4, 7, -2, -4, 1. And then they ask us, is this invertible or not? Now, without doing a lot of calculations, what can you guys see? N by N. You say is 3 rows, 3 columns. Yes, so at least we know we can't use, it must be a square matrix. So at least that we know. But now the best way is perhaps to find whether the columns are linearly independent or not. Eh? So we should actually do the whole row reduction stuff. But this specific question might only be in the multiple choice questions. So which counts 1 or 2 marks. So they don't want us to do a lot of calculations. So what can you see from column 1 and column 2 perhaps? Yes. So that means, so column 2 is just a scalar multiplication of column 1. So it means to get to vector 2, if you want to call it vector 2, column 2, it's not necessary to have it as a separate vector. I could have just used vector 1, which means that the column 2 will actually be a free variable if I do the whole row reduction and stuff like that. Which means these three vectors as a combination are not linearly independent. They are dependent. Why? Because they depend on some another vector to enlarge the span. That's one way of looking at the dependency or not. Or you can treat it like this. That second one, that 2, 4, -4, that one is dependent on 1, 2, -2 to get to 2, 4, -4. So that's why this in the end won't be invertible. Why not? Because the columns are linearly dependent. Which also tells me if I were to do the whole calculations, there wouldn't have been 3 pivot positions. There might only have been 2 or even 1, but not 3. And the list goes on. Any of these are true then. The transpose is not an invertible matrix. The columns does not span Rn. This equation does not only have the trivial solution. All of that stuff will then be true for that. And let's see if there's another one. I just want to find another one, yeah? And let's have a look at the next one. So here they give us again a matrix. And this matrix is, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 4, 5, 6, 0. So they ask us, is this invertible matrix or not? So now I can't see straight away that the one column is a multiple of another one, or addition or subtraction or so. So let's just do the whole row reduction. So row 2 minus twice row 1. I have 0, 1, -4. Row 3 minus 3 times row 1. I have 0, 4, -15. Then 1, 0, 5, 0, 1, -4. Row 3 minus 4 times row 2. So 0, 0. Then it is just 1 there. So there I have 3 pivots, which means, and it is a square matrix. So this matrix is invertible. I'm not going to, it's not necessary to calculate the inverse of it now. This section is just what can we say about that A matrix? Is it invertible or not? And in this case, this one is invertible then. All good. So let's see. Is this matrix invertible or not? There is 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 pivots. So this one is invertible. I can't see that the one will cancel with another one or some. So this one is invertible because it has n pivots. You see. Um, let's have a look at this one here. So it will be quite a long exercise if we need to do the row reduction stuff. So let's see if the easiest way that it's not invertible is like that first equation of that first example. See, isn't there perhaps a combination of the two? The one minus the other one or something like that of the columns. Or any combination. Otherwise, we should unfortunately do the whole row reduction stuff if we can't see anything. And I mean, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 5 by 5 matrix will be quite a lot to do row reduction. But you're more than welcome to do row reduction. But hopefully there's some sort of combination. We haven't done the whole thing about you haven't done the determinant stuff already. You did. What the determinant means. I think it's only in chapter 3 that determinants come in. So you will see this is now quite a long thing, but eventually if you do this, you will find there's pivots in each row. So then this one, it's not necessary to do now, but this one will also be, I thought I actually hoped that it was not one, then it's easy to see whether or not it is or isn't. Yeah. So you'll see later when we're going to get to determinants in detail, there's quick ways of finding the determinant. Now, if the determinant is not 0, then you know it is invertible. If the determinant is 0, it's not invertible. You can't get the inverse. But in this case, this determinant won't be 0. But yeah, it will be a bit long to calculate. So that's about that for chapter 2.3, the characterization of the invertible matrix. Is just that whole list that you can go, if you know something is not invertible, you know it won't have in pivot positions, you know the columns will be linearly dependent, and you know the AX equals 0 won't just have the trivial solution, there will be other solutions as well. All of those stuff, all that list just goes on and on. So they can, they can, or perhaps they give you 2 or 3 matrices. Then they ask you which one of these are invertible and why. Then you say these two are invertible because they have in pivot positions. This one is not invertible. Why not? Because the columns, one is perhaps a multiplication or just a combination of the others. which means the columns are linearly dependent. And because I know they are linearly dependent, I know the matrix itself is not invertible. So, but in terms of the proofs, I think your lecturer should give you a list of proofs that they can ask, and then you just study those proofs. So, so it is possible. All right, but can we carry on to the subspaces now? Because this 3.3 is just basically a list of stuff that needs to be true for a matrix to be invertible. All right, so now we get to something special, and that is just subspaces. Now, if we understand subspaces, then the work from here onward will be much easier. So let's just discuss what a subset is, because I know they talk a lot about subsets as well. So before we get to subspace, let's just talk about the subset. And I'm going to give a definition in a moment. So here's the definition of just a subset. Now, a subset of Rn is any collection of points of Rn. So you can think of it like this. If you have a basket full of fruit, here's a basket. And here's just fruit in. They can be oranges. They can be apples. They can be red apples. They can be any other weird fruit that you can think of. Blueberries, whatever. It's just a collection of points. A collection of fruit, if you would like. That's a subset. But now, to make it more specific, what type of subsets do we get? Now, we're just going to look at subspace now. So a subset is just any collection of points. But a subspace of Rn is a subset. So it is a basket full of fruit, but within this basket full of fruit, these next three things should be true. Otherwise, it's not a subspace. It can still be a subset, but it's not to say it's a subspace. So if there's in this basket, if the zero vector is in, that's one way or one tick mark. The next tick mark is it should be closed under addition. And then it must be closed under scalar multiplication as well. If it complies with all three of those, then we know it is a subspace. So, for instance, let's have a look at this. Where's my mouse? Where's this? Yeah. Let's have a look at this. Let's say I have a line. Here's a line that I'm interested in. I'm asking you, is this a sub? And it goes through origin. So here's the origin. And here's some sort of, yeah, it's just a line that's on this line. So this whole line. I want to know this whole line. Is this whole line a subspace? Now let's go and have a look. First, is the zero vector on this line? Yes, it is. Secondly, is it closed under addition? Meaning, if I have any vector on this line, and if I add them, will I still be on this line? The answer is yes. So it's closed under addition. And third, yes.
So I think what you are they supposed to be like within the subspace or within the R?
They should be on that line. Yeah.
The
No, if the moment they do, then it's not a subspace anymore. So any vector on this line plus another vector on that line will still be on that line. So they are closed on addition, meaning, and you'll see we're going to do an example in a moment as well where perhaps it's not the case. But in this case, you can think of any two vectors on this line. If you add them together, you will still be on that line. It's impossible to get out of that line. If you don't add a vector that's out of that line.
like we saw like that people two vectors, one is in this way, the other one is. It doesn't mean the length of the other one doesn't like it doesn't necessarily it has to be two as long as it's on the
It's just on that line, yes. Because this line carries on to infinity. And that brings us to the next point, which says it must be closed under multiplication. So if you have any vector on this line, perhaps this red one, and I multiply it with 10 or with negative 1,000 or with whatever I'm going to multiply, it's just going to still be on that line. It might be way too very large in that side, maybe if I multiplied it with 10, or it may be on this side if I multiplied it with negative 10, but it will still be on that line. So this thing is also closed under multiplication. So all three things are true, which means this is a subspace. This is a subspace. But let's have a look at something else, which might not be a subspace. So all three things should be correct. Let's look at this. So let's say that blue line. They ask you, is that blue line? So everywhere on that blue line, is that a subspace? Well, firstly, does it contain the zero vector? No. I mean, the zero vector is here. So already I know it's not a subspace. All right. But secondly, let's say I had a vector that was up until here. Is that vector on that line? Yes, it is. But let's say I have another vector that's also on that line. Let's say there, those two vectors. If I were to add those two vectors, so I'm adding the blue after the red and the orange, where will I get? I will get there. I will get to this green value. And is that green vector on that blue circle? No. So closed under addition? No, it's not. What about closed under multiplication? Well, let's say I multiply this red one with just 1.5. I'm just multiplying it with 1.5. Then it would have been there, which is also not on that line. So closed under multiplication, also not true. So this blue circle is not a subspace. So it must always comply with those three things. Let's look at something else. Let's say I'm asking you the whole first quadrant. The whole first quadrant. Is the whole first quadrant a subspace? So that whole section there. Is it the subspace? Now let's see if it's true or not. Firstly, does it contain the zero vector? Yes, it does contain the zero vector. Secondly, is it closed under addition? Meaning, if I have any vector in that space and I add it with another vector in that space, will I get to still in that space? Well, you can think of, let's say I have a random vector here and I have a random vector here. And I'm adding those two. Where will that answer be? It will be somewhere here, right? Is that still on that plane, on that space, in that space? Yes. So closed under addition, it seems to be correct. Closed under multiplication. Well, what if I multiplied the red? Say this was A. What if I multiply the A with -1? If I multiply it with -1, it would have been a vector looking like that. Is that still in the space? No. So it's not closed under multiplication. So it's not a subspace. So subspace is it needs to comply with all three of those three things. Makes sense. Now that we have in order what a subset is, a subset is just a collection of points. We already established that. Is that basket full of fruit? A subspace is more specific. It's it is a, let's say, basket of fruit which contains all three of these things. Must be closed under addition, must be closed under multiplication, and must have the zero vector. Now, some special subspaces that we're going to look at. So we have subspaces. And some special subspaces that we're going to look at is the column space and the null space. And they will always ask something like this. They will ask you to calculate the column space. They will ask you to calculate the null space and so forth. So let's just get the idea behind what this is. So the definition of these two things is just the following. The column space of A is a subspace of Rm spanned by the columns of A. It is written as column of col A. It stands for column space of A. The null space of A is a subspace of Rn consisting of all the solutions of the homogeneous equation of Ax equals 0. So for the second point, for a null space, you actually need to do some calculations. For a column space, it's not necessary to do a lot of calculations, and you'll see now. So let's just see if let's do one example, then you'll see. Just want to find a nice one here. All right. So let's say they give this to us. They give this matrix 1, 3, 2, 2, 0, -2, 3, 1, -2, 286. And they say, right, calculate the column space and calculate the null space. So the easiest is to do the column space. Now I'll explain in a moment what column space also means, and then you'll see how it all fits together. So for a column space, let's just get it into its row reduction. 1, 2, 3, 2. And then row 2 minus 3 times row 1. We have 0, -6, -8, 2. Then row 3 minus twice row 1, 0, -6. And then that will be -2 minus 6 is -8. And then 2, right? So we can see those are the same. So we have 1, 2, 3, 2. And we have 0. If I just divide this with perhaps -2, I will have 3, 4, and -1, and 0, 0, 0, 0, if I subtract those from one another. So the pivot columns is this one and this one, because these are free. So how you calculate the column space is you go back to the original. So it's this one and this one. So the column space of A is the span of 1, 3, 2 and 2, 0, -2. Now, what does this actually mean before we get to the null space? What this means is, let's say each column represented a coloring pencil, right? So just want to show you. There's different ways of treating this. Let's say this was this, just to make it visual. Let's say this represented the red crate or the red pencil. And this one, the blue one, this one, the purple one, and this one, let's say the orange one. Then the question is, if you want to color in a certain image, do you need all 4 of these pencils or not? And the answer is no, you don't need these 2. You can, with a combination of these 2, you can get to those 2. So the column space, all that you need is actually just these 2. You don't need these. That's basically what column space is. Another example. Let's say this was just building blocks, and you want to build something nice. Let's say it's Legos, and whatever you want to build, these Lego blocks are not necessary to be part of the. You can just use combinations of these to build whatever you would like to build. Then those 2 wasn't necessary, so the column space is just those 2. It's just those that's important, if you want to say it like that. Yes, so it will be those that's linearly dependent, independent.
Or doing some, like I said, operations on one of the codes.
Exactly. So it is possible to get to the purple and the orange one by making use of the red and the blue one. So that's you'll see all of these stuff a lot of times says the same thing. This now just different term that we linked it to. So the columns, yes. Yeah.
Let's see the first column, the last column.
Is the columns that has pivots in. So it could have happened that there's a 0, but there's a 1. Then it would have been this column and that column. You see. So you just go and have a look at all the columns that has a pivot in, or let's call it the pivot columns, and the pivot columns is then the column space. So the dimension of the column space is how many vectors are there? 2. So the dimension, and we're going to get to that in a moment. The dimension, let me just write it. The dimension of the column space is then just 2. So keep that in the back of your head. We will get to something quite amazing in a moment. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is then the null space. How do we calculate the null space? Now, to calculate the null space, you actually, let me just give you the recipe. To calculate the null space, so let's say we are still busy with this one. So let's say I just want to equate this to 0. Say again. I don't know why it's giving me problems today. Is it now? So here we need to do some calculations. So we need to find the solution of Ix equals 0. So let's see, we are already almost done. So if we just equate it to 0 from the beginning, we will have this. Then what is free? We already said those two are free. Now let's say it was X, Y, Z, and T, for instance. Then Z equals to T equals to the all are free. So that second one says 3y will eventually be equal to negative 4z plus t. So y is equal to negative 4 over 3z plus a third t. And that first equation basically said x equals negative 2y minus 3z minus 2t, which is the same as negative 2 times y, and y is negative 4 over 3z plus a third t minus 3z minus 2t. So we have 8 over 3z minus 2 over 3t minus 3z minus 2t. So we have negative a third z, and then negative, what is that? 6 is negative 8 over 3 t. So therefore, x, y, z, and t is equal to something z plus something t plus constant. So x is negative a third z minus 8 over 3t plus 0. Y is negative 4 over 3z plus a third t plus 0. This will actually just be 0, 0 because it's homogeneous. So it's not necessary to have this in. Z is just Z, and T is just T. So the null space of A is the span of -1/3, -4/3, 1, 0, and -8/3, 1/3, 0, and 1. That then is the null space of A. So can you see, for the null space of A, we actually need to do calculations. The column space was not that necessary to do a lot of calculations. It was just finding the pivot positions. So there again is the recipe for the null space. So let's just think of, if we go back to the definitions or the illustrations I gave earlier to understand the column space, where I said, let's think of building blocks when you were in kindergarten. Column space is, yes, a lot of blocks in front of you, a lot of Legos. You want to build something specific, you want to build a car. So all of these Legos is not necessary. You only need these 5 and just multiples of these 5. But you just need these 5 blocks, then you can build a nice car. So those will be the column space. Those others weren't. It's nice to have them, but you can get without them. You can get to the shape that you want just by looking at these 5. That's column space. A null space, what is a null space? What does that tell us in? Now, let's say you have all of these Legos in front of you, and the moment you are adding a certain Lego or a certain combination of Legos, then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. Everything is gone. Now, those Legos that you've added, where the moment you've added them, then all of a sudden everything is gone. That represents the null space. You see? So if you can think of it like that. The null space is, because how did we get to the null space? We added, look, what will the answers be? What should the solution set be? You remember about solution set? What is the solution set if I want to get to 0? And here we have the solution set. Then, okay, what does this span? That is then the null space.
Suppose that we have a next in 1 to 3. We have actually two vectors in 3. So the addition
2 vectors in order 3.
basically only what the homogeneous equation. Basically, we're saying that every point of x and y, that if we go to substitute, then it will give us 0. Isn't that what null space represent? Like any point or a point that gives us 0. When substituted into the matrix.
Yeah, so what a null space is, basically what you said, or more or less what you said. So it just comes down to this, the span of the solution set, of the homogeneous solution set, whatever that span is, the vectors that needed to be there to create that span, those are the null space. So that solution set is null space, meaning if we substitute in any vector that's on that line or on that plane or whatever that span represents, if you substitute it back into the equation, then you will get 0. Because that's the whole idea about null. It gives you null. Makes sense. So, but here is something that I want you to get. So these are not multiples of one another. If they were, then one of them should again fall away, but it's not like that now. So what is the dimension of this null space? It's also 2, right? As you can see. So I know this is only next week's work, but just to give you the idea that you can keep this in the back of your head, we have the dimension of the column space, we have the dimension of the null space, and what should always be true is we call the rank theorem. The rank theorem. Because the rank of A plus the nullity. Now the nullity is just the dimension of the null space. Those two added together must always give you n. So in this case, the rank was 2, the nullity was 2, and it was a 3 by 4. There were 4 matrices, 4 vectors, and 2 was, you can think of it like the rank is the column. Let me give you the dimension after the definition. You'll see the rank. Oh, you can't see there. The rank of a matrix is just the dimensions of the column space, and the nullity is the dimensions of the null space. So if you have let's say you have a 5 by, let me write it like this. Let's say you have a 5 by 23 matrix, parallel matrix, right? And you've calculated that in the end, the rank was 17, meaning there were basically 17 important vectors. There were 17 pivot positions, pivot columns. Without doing any calculations, what will be the nullity? It will be 6. Because 17 plus 6 plus what gives you 23. And that is the rank theorem. The rank plus the nullity should always give you the amount of columns. So even if I don't want to calculate that nullity, I know by now that if I were to do the homogeneous solution of that 5 by 23 matrix, in the end, there would have been 6 free variables, and my solution set will be something of the first, something times the first variable, so plus something, the second variable, and so on. So there would have been 6 6 columns that's, let's say, linearly dependent. Makes sense? So you can think of it like this. The number of columns with pivots plus a number of pivots, columns without pivots is obviously the number of columns. I mean, it can't be anything different. And the number of pivots, that is rank. The number without pivots, that will in the end be your nullity. It's not your nullity answer, it's just the dimension of the nullity. To get the nullity itself, the null space, you actually need to do calculations. All right. Let's look at another one. All right, let's have a look at this one here. So they ask us, find the column space and the null space of this this vector, this matrix. So first of all, for a column space, is easy. Just go and row reduces all thing. Row 2 plus twice row 1 will be 0, 0, 0. So how many pivot columns do I have? Isn't it just this one? You see, just that one. So the column space of A is the span of 1, -2. Which means, can I get to the other columns just by having that one? Yes. So what is the dimension? What is the dimension of the column space? It's just 1. So without doing any calculations, what do you think will be the dimensions of the null space? 2. It should be 2. Otherwise, we made a mistake somewhere. So now to calculate, to get the null space, we unfortunately need to do a bit more calculations. We need to augment it with 0, 0 and find the solution. So in the end, I already have that previous row reduction values. So these are free. As you can see, these two are free. So my x is then just, let's say, y minus 2z. So finally, if I want to write it nicely, I say y and z. So x is 1 times y minus 2 times z. Y is just y, and z is just z. So the null space, not nullity, null space is the span of these two vectors. So the nullity is 2 because there's two vectors. And let's see if the rank theorem is correct. The rank, which is 1 plus the nullity, should be equal to 3. You see? And there we have it. Now you've done the rank theorem also now. This one. So x is just y minus 2z, right? So do you want to know how I've written this? So look here. So remember, y and z are all just free, right? So x equals y minus 2z. Y is just y, and z is just z, right? Are you still with me? Okay. Now, I can rewrite this better. I can say x equals, look now, y, yz, here's y, and then here's z, z. So I have one y, 0 y's. I have negative 2z, 0z, and 1z. So to write it even better, I can say, wait a minute, just take out a y there, then that is just that, and then take out a z there, then it's just that. You see, because in the end, you have this x equals this, right? Y equals this. and Z equals this. You see. All right. Any questions? Hopefully subspaces make sense to you now. Subspaces, there's two special subspaces. Column space, null space. Column space, you don't do a lot of calculations. You just get to find out what's the pivot positions. But those vectors at the end is not your column space. You need to go back to the original one. For null space is you need to do calculations. You need to equate it to 0, find the parametric solution, and those vectors that in the end that's there, the free variable vectors basically, that gives you the null space. Any questions? Now you can go and study for calculus.